boundless compassion,
absorbing world sounds awakens the Buddha right here. This Buddha, the source of compassion. This Buddha receives only compassion. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, just compassion. Thus the pure heart always rejoices. In the light recall this, in the dark recall this. Moment after moment, the true heart arises. Time after time, there is nothing but this. Absorbing world sounds awakens the Buddha right here. This Buddha, the source of compassion. This Buddha receives only compassion. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, just compassion. Thus the pure heart always rejoices. In the light recalls it, in the dark recalls it. Moment after moment, the true heart arises. Time after time, there is nothing but this. Absorbing world sounds awakens the Buddha right here. This Buddha, the source of compassion. This Buddha receives only compassion. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, just compassion. Thus the pure heart always rejoices. In the light recalls, in the dark recalls. Moment after moment, the true heart arises. Time after time, there is nothing but this.
It's a great joy for me to welcome our guest teacher for today, Victoria Shosan Austin Sensei from San Francisco Zen Center. She is a Dharma heir of Suzuki Shunryu Roshi's lineage, and she has been a great friend and associate for many, many years now, ever since, for almost a couple of decades now, meeting in our annual Zen Teachers meetings. And also, Shosan has come to Dallas several times and has given precept ordination to several of our Dallas Sangha members. So people know about you, so I won't say too much about yourself now. So please share with us your Dharma.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ruben. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, everybody. I see some familiar faces and some people who we haven't yet met in person. And I look forward to the day when we can meet in person. Can you hear me okay? Good. So I also want to say that my internet or Wi-Fi might go down because I'm in a building in San Francisco at San Francisco Zen Center. And right now we're just before a residents meeting of San Francisco Zen Center residents. And as soon as they all turn their Wi-Fi on, we'll see what happens with mine. So let's just cope with this, okay? So today I'd like to speak with you about Bodhisattva practice. Bodhisattva practice right now. And I think it's just really, this is a teaching that is important all the time, but it's a teaching that's particularly important now. And particularly at times when we might either have different positions on what's going on in the world right now, what's going on in California and in Texas right now, what's going on in our own shelter-in-place situations right now, and what's going on in our own bodies and minds right now. So I think it's just really important to understand what Bodhisattva practice is and why it applies to us. So I want to start this lecture just by saying, good morning, Bodhisattvas. So good morning, Bodhisattvas. I mean you. I mean you, Bodhisattvas. Us, Bodhisattvas. What are Bodhisattvas? Well, we just recited the Enmei-juku Kannon-gyo, the 10-phrase Kanzeon Sutra, which you call compassion, and which is important to understand as compassion in Maria Kannon Zen Center, because Maria and Kannon are compassion. And so I trust that this is Ruben's translation of the Enmei-juku Kannon-gyo. Is it?
No, this is Hogan Base.
Hogan Bays, but you liked it.
Yes, we like it very much.
Okay, so so the point is that we all are of the nature of light, and at the same time, we can see our vows not just as a path to realize light, but also as a path to understand renunciation and resolve. So those are two sides of the coin of being a bodhisattva. Bodhisattva is called an awakening being, and sattva is the light of human existence. As a being, sattva is a being, and bodhi is light. And as beings of light, we know that we're not just of light, we're also of clay, right? So we're of the nature of light and we're of the nature of earth. And this is important to understand. If we're of the nature of light, why do we have difficulties, disagreements, COVID-19, climate crisis, political disagreements, and economic hardship, and auto rules and regulations, and food, preparing food every day and having to go to the toilet? Why does all that exist? And the point of its existence, the point of all of our existence, is that embodied existence is a way to realize both the light and the dark at the same time, both the brightness and the kind of embodied earthy presence of the awakening process. And I think it's really important to understand this, because the main Bodhisattva vow is, when one is not free, I am not free. When all are free, I am free. Okay, that is actually literally the vow of Jizo Bosatsu. As long as there's one being who's not free, I am not free. Jizo is Earth Store Bodhisattva, and Jizo is often depicted as a monk with a staff, and by Jizo's feet are little children. And Jizo's depicted sometimes with a hat because he's walking around traveling. And when there are beings in trouble, we sew rakusus or cloaks for Jizo, and we put them on the statue. And this is a symbolism, a symbol of wisdom and compassion. So the wisdom that holds all beings in view, and the compassion that embraces all beings in the heart. And this is the everyday life of a bodhisattva. So what does that mean? Well, I want to hold up Exhibit A. Okay, so you'll see a little box. There's a little box here. The box has peat moss in it, and there's seedlings growing up out of the peat moss. This box was given to me, it was sent to me by my student, Dhammadipa Konin Cardenas, who just received the vows of a bhikshuni. So she has become a shramanera as well as a Dharma holder in the Soto Zen tradition. And so it means that she's dedicated her life both to insight and to bodhisattva practice. And so when she sent me this box, it was just a little box with some sunflower seeds in it and some peat moss. And so as I was planting the sunflower seeds and watering the peat moss, I thought, oh, this is metaphorical. This is interesting. This is her and my relationship. Isn't that something? This is an intimate way to express her and my relationship by planting these seeds and watering them and waiting for them to come up. So you'll also notice the seeds are not the only thing. I have two like ice cream sticks here. And this is raffia. And so what happened was these seeds, I planted these seeds last Sunday and they began to come up on Tuesday. And they were really cute. And then they shot up really tall, you know, like instead of this big, they were this big suddenly. And then they started falling over. And I thought, oh no, because I had already identified them with her and my relationship. Oh no, the seedlings are falling over. Oh no, now what? And then I thought, oh, sunflower seeds. Why do sunflower seeds fall over? Oh, sunflower seeds grow tall. They sprout really quickly. Because they sprout really quickly, they get leggy. And because they get leggy on thin stalks that aren't big enough to hold them up, it's their nature to fall over. Oh, aha. I know. There must be a way to make them not fall over. To help them not fall over. Oh, I know. I'll put a stick in and I'll tie them to the stick and then they won't fall over. Well, in a plant, we have just recited the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism. Life is of the nature to fall over. There's a reason it falls over. There's hope that it won't fall over. And the way to have it not fall over is to create standards by which it can stay tall, grow from the earth to the sky. Okay, so this is the Buddha's teaching. And as you see, it's not very complicated. That's called the Four Noble Truths. And the Buddha realized these Four Noble Truths. And they were the first thing that he realized in the watches of the night when the night was dark and his whole life was coming to meet him as he sat under the Bodhi tree. So what came to meet him was all the problems of human existence, his not knowing what human existence was and how to solve the problem of suffering. That's human suffering that he had noticed when he was a teenager. All of the possibilities of aggression, symbolized in the story by Mara's armies coming to threaten him and dislodge him from his seat. All of Mara's seductions coming to seduce him from his path. And as he sat through the watches of the night, he had an insight into all the different ways of being that there are in the world, and how everything, everyone and everything in the world shares the virtuous characteristics of full awakening. And it's only because of how we're built that we fail to realize it. And that's what he said the moment that he woke up. He said, wow, I now see that all beings from the very beginning have been fully endowed with the knowledge and virtuous characteristics of the fully awakened ones. But because of causes and conditions, habits and preconceptions, we do not realize it. And so how do we realize it? So he said that his first teaching when he got up was, this is the noble truth of suffering. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, illness is suffering, death is suffering. Getting what we don't want is suffering. Not getting what we do want is suffering. Separation from what's pleasing, union with what's displeasing. In brief, all of us and how we're built, that is suffering. That's of the nature of suffering. It doesn't mean that everything about life is suffering. It means that in us are the qualities that lead us to confront our limitations. That's how we're built. And then he said, now this is the noble truth of the origin of suffering. It's thirst or craving, which also means craving, aversion, or ignorance, which leads to suffering. So that's the origin of suffering. And so because we can see the origin, then we can see how it might end. And how it might end, I'll set forth as the path, he said, the Noble Eightfold Path. And when he said he saw this, he said, at that moment, knowledge and vision arose in me. My release has come. This is the last round of existence I'll face. I won't be suffering anymore. As soon as he taught that, one of his 5 companions realized it, and the Buddha immediately said, wow, you've realized it, you've understood. This, you can read this teaching in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the teaching, the turning of the first turning of the wheel. Okay, so why is this important? This is important because the Buddha taught us that it isn't that everything is, that every moment is suffering. It's that we're of the nature to experience suffering. So it's like a way that we're built. The way that we're built is to age and die. The way that we're built is to be limited and experience our limitations moment after moment. So that was his diagnosis of the problem of human existence. And then he came up with an etiology for that condition of suffering. How it comes up is because we want things, or we don't want things, or we don't know how things are. And so what's the treatment? The treatment is letting go. And what's the prescription? The path. Okay, so he taught 4 noble truths. And so we can take our problems and we can see them in the light of the 4 noble truths, which aren't special. They're not some special knowledge outside of our experience. There's some knowledge that's inherent within the experience we're already having. So like, for instance, one day I was sitting here, sitting in Zazen. It was 5 or 5:30 in the morning. This was last month. And the sun didn't come up. As I was sitting, the sun didn't come up. And I was profoundly upset. Actually, it didn't come up all day long. There was no sun. It was dark. The sky was brown. I couldn't see the floor in my apartment till 4 o'clock. And I became uneasy like a dog in a burning house. So at an animal level, I was uneasy. And so I experienced what happens when there are fires in California. I suffer because I can't breathe the air and the sun is dimmed by the clouds. So I become profoundly uneasy in that situation. Uneasy, I can't find my life. That is the feeling of suffering. And there's an origin to that. The origin to that is that I want the sun to come up as usual. I want to be able to breathe the air. I don't know what's happening. And so that confusion puts me into a state of despair and anxiety. And I hate that the air is unbreathable and that I can't see outside or walk outside, because that's been my refuge in COVID-19. It's scary when that happens. But because there's an origin, there's an end to it. I can say, oh, I'm anxious because it's dark. I'm anxious because the air is bad. And I can take steps to acknowledge that deep anxiety, which isn't even at the reasoning level, it's at the animal, the survival level, and meet that with practice. And the practice, I can start with right view. This is the way the world is right now. This is the way California is right now. There are fires. I can wake up even here. I can remember the mandala of the Bodhisattva, who appears the same in all of the 6 realms of existence, in the fierce state of animal life, in the angry state of the hungry gods, in the scared, anxious, and painful state of hell, in the state of possibilities of human life, and so on. The Bodhisattva appears the same. And then, even though I'm still uncomfortable, I have access to the light. And when someone else calls me and is uncomfortable, I can say, yes, I'm uncomfortable too. You're doing okay. Let's wait, let's breathe, let's do these breathing exercises that don't make us breathe too deeply, because we don't want to breathe in too much smoke, but that do allow our bodies to function. And so it isn't the thing that I suggested. It is the fact that there is light in that situation that is supportive to the person next to me. And as long as the person next to me is anxious and hasn't taken refuge in that light, I can help them. And as long as there's one person who hasn't taken refuge in the light, I am not free. So those are the 4 noble truths. But I want to talk about the work of a bodhisattva, not just from the point of view of truth, which can be intellectual. I want to talk about it from the heart, using the same examples, and from vow, using the same examples. So truth is one way to look at life. Heart, vows, and presence are other features of bodhisattva life. So the the heart of a bodhisattva is the divine abidings, the four immeasurables. And we often see them as nice qualities to bring to the world. Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, and Upeksha. So friendliness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. So in a conventional way, I can have a feeling of friendliness for the sunflower seeds and what they represent. I can have a feeling of compassion for their falling over, and a feeling of joy when the stick helps them stand up. And I can develop equanimity towards those sunflower seeds and what they represent, and know that whether they're standing up or falling down, there will be a way to help the sunflower seeds and the sunflower as they begin to sprout. And I can have friendliness towards my anxious neighbor and know that I am like my anxious neighbor in my anxiety. I can have compassion for my anxious neighbor in that I have brought my anxiety to rest. Not that it doesn't come up, but that I'm continually meeting it moment after moment so that it's not running me. I can have joy for my neighbor that they might have an air filter if I don't. And I can have equanimity knowing that even when California is burning, I have I need to sit and see through my anxiety, and I need to be on the path and exemplify the path. So that's another way to see the work of a bodhisattva, truth and heart. And a third way to see the work of a bodhisattva is vows. Now, I don't know if I think you probably recite the 4 vows, beings are numberless, I vow to save them, right? You do. Yes. So delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them. I think Aitken Roshi said cut them. I think Yamato Roshi said cut them. And that's the translation of the character. And Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them all. Or no matter, save the many beings, right? Cut off the inexhaustible delusions, enter the boundless gates, and become the unsurpassable path. Okay. And so we can see our life in terms of those vows. Now, for a lifetime, I've been studying these ways of being a bodhisattva. So I first received the Bodhisattva Precepts decades ago. They're inexhaustible. They're not rules or anything. They're ways to see and experience the world so that I don't have to go under when the sunflower seeds fall or when the fires come. So I don't have to go under. I can be here for and with everybody. And that's a way of experiencing life so that I can do that. But I just want to bring up an ancient Chinese Zen master called Tiantai Zhi. And he was, I'm sorry, I don't remember the tones of his name. But Zhi wrote the Mahoji Guan, the great calming and contemplation. He also wrote the Xiaoji Guan, which is the small calming and contemplation. But in the great Zhi Guan, he was a Tendai master, and Tendai was the lineage that Dogen Zenji ordained in before he became the founder of Zen in Japan, before he went to China and studied and was awakened at Ru Jing's place and came back to Japan and brought Zen to Japan. Before that, he was a Tendai monk. And Tendai is amazing, an amazing branch of Buddhism, which has a lot of learnedness in it. It has a lot of structure in it. And one of the things that Zhi did in his Mahoji Guan, Zhi Guan just means sitting and seeing, calming and contemplation. And a Japanese name is shikan, as in, we say shikantaza, right? So stop is literally what they have in stop signs in Japan. And contemplation is literally like what you do with your eyes, stopping and seeing. So it's not different from the New Yorker cartoon where there's these two guys standing in front of this billboard that says stop and think. And one of the guys is saying to the other, it kind of makes you stop and think, doesn't it? So it's not any more complicated than that. It's just that when you do it for a lifetime over and over and over in various circumstances, it has more meaning. The meaning develops. Our life develops as a meaning of that. And so, it's kind of like Reuben teaches the Ignatian retreat disciplines. And so as part of those retreat disciplines, you visualize your inspiration, your inspirational character from the story and life and teachings about Jesus and Mary and, all the things that Maria Kannon Zen Center combines. And you can do this not just on the Christian path, you can do this on the Buddhist path. And so when you follow the steps of a beloved archetypal figure in this way, who's not just an archetype outside, but a light in your own heart, you become closer to that way of life. And it's not an imposed thing like a rule, it's a way of seeing and experiencing and meeting life as an embodiment of that vow, that practice. The vow is that light taking shape as words. And it has to take shape as words and as a body, because those are aspects of being that cry out for realization. So the light itself doesn't have hands or feet, right? We are the hands and feet. And we can't just do this any old way according to our inclinations, because it won't actually be realized, because we're limited. So we have to have models that are infinite and always beautiful for us. And we have to try to take those shapes in our own life and in these circumstances, and not just wish for other circumstances. These are the circumstances. This is it. This is all the it there is. There's no other it. That's the first noble truth. This is it. Okay. So actually, these the Chatvarya Arya Satyani, the four noble truths, the four immeasurables, and the four great vows are these aspects. So the four noble truths are the insight, the four or the intelligence of discernment, the noble eye. The four noble truths are the noble eye of Zen practice. The four immeasurables are the noble heart of Zen practice. And the four vows are the noble speech of Zen practice. And so, I could run through all, what is 4 times 3 times 2 times 1? I could run through all of these as different combinations of each other, and it works that way. But I'm not going to. I'll just give the example that Juri, one of the things he did as a Tendai monk was to run through all of these things and bring out the multiplicity of realization. As you can see it in the Avatamsaka Sutra, but before that in the Brahmajala Sutra, the Great Vows of the Bodhisattva, you can see him lay this all out. So he lays out all the permutations and combinations and says that that's how multiplicity is met, by understanding it in the context of the specificity of practice. But let's just take an example. Let's just take Maitri, friendliness. or loving kindness. So loving kindness is the basic heart function of inclusion. In loving kindness, you can still have objective someone else and objective me, right? So let's say you're sitting at the Thanksgiving table, whether on Zoom or whether live in your bubble, and turkey or tofurkey is finished. The pumpkin pie is beginning to come out, and somebody says, I can't believe that so-and-so won the election. The world is about to end. That four-letter word. And you are like, no, my person won the election. Your person is a four-letter word. So let's say that happens. Okay, well, Maitri is what allows you to stay at the table. So there's still an objectification, like, my uncle is an idiot, right? There's still that objectification, but he's my idiot, right? So that he's my idiot is the first step towards actual inclusion. So that love, no matter how many years go by, he's still mine. No matter what he says or does, he's still mine. Even if I kind of kick him out of my immediate family, he's still mine. At the moment of death, I might think, oh, Uncle so-and-so, I kicked him out of the family. I humbly seek forgiveness for doing that. Or, oh, Uncle so-and-so, now I see I'm like Uncle so-and-so in the setness of my views. So that Maitri, and it goes with the four great vows. I did not vow to save all beings except Uncle so-and-so, that four-letter word. I vowed to save all beings, and Maitri is what allows me to do that. And the insight that life is of the nature of difference, which is painful and unsatisfying unless and until we practice with it, is the insight that allows me to do that. So that's just one example out of the 16 or 48 or, however many it turns out to be when you multiply all of them independently. Okay, so I want to say that. And I want to say that you can realize both the insight and the heart part of it sitting in Zazen, or you can realize both the insight and the heart part of it practicing Sokushinzei Butsu, which is this very mind is Buddha. And those are the two big features of our practice. Whether we're Sanbo Kyodan Soto Zen or Theravada or whatever, those are the aspects of our practice that we need to understand. Okay, so I think hadn't I better stop? I mean, don't we need to do something else now, like talk about this?
Yes.
So thanks for your patience. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that it? You have a summary statement or something to wrap up what you said?
Yeah. My summary statement is, don't throw out difference. Study it. Bring your heart, your mind, and your words to practicing with difference, and realize the interplay of the light and the earth, the interplay of heaven and earth. And then you will understand what's meant by the Buddha being between heaven and earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
I feel that you have given us a very, very encapsulated view of the Zen life, or perhaps better, of the awakened life. So thank you so much, Shosan. Now, I have received some requests from Sangha members to ask you, please tell us how you came to devote your whole life to Zen. What was it in your youth, or what were the issues you were dealing with and so forth that made you decide to take on this life of Zen, if you will, just briefly?
Okay, guys, how long do you have? Okay, I'll tell you the elevator version. Okay, I'm a first-generation American daughter. I was born in the US, daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors. And so I'm a first-generation American. And they never talked about the Holocaust at home, but it drove them. So I have epigenetic trauma from 5,000 years of diaspora. And so, of course, when I was young, I did my best to ignore this. And we had 2 cultures. One was at home, where my father would give teachings like, don't trust anyone, because when they come to the door to get you, it's only the family who's willing to die for you, and sometimes not even them. And my name, Victoria Amy, comes from Victor, who gave his life so my mother could live, and Amalia, who was his mother and my mother's mother, and then went looking for him, and she was picked up and shot as well. So that's where my name comes from, and that's why I don't just use my Dharma name, because this is one of my Dharma names. It took me a long time to understand this. So when I was a kid, my mode was mostly to run away from it. And so I was in a rock band, and we used to go all over New York. I was also in band, chorus, and orchestra, and trying my best to escape the house. So I started working when I was 15 or 16. I worked in a hospital, and I was going to be a doctor, but that didn't happen. This happened instead. So how it happened was that when I went to college, and I was one of the first women at an all-male college, and I went there so that I could, you know. And so when I went, my band dissolved. And so we had a reunion at Thanksgiving in 1971. And I was on my way back to my mother's house from the reunion. The reunion was great. So we sang, and, you know, we did all our favorites. And our favorites were anything with a flute solo that I could like dance and wave my hair around and play the flute and sing. And, you know, I was the girl in the band, right? So I got to do that stuff. And so we had a great time, and I was on my way home, and my car stalled, and another car hit my car, which then became airborne. And during that time, time became timeless. And it was like the universe spun around, turned itself inside out, and looked at itself through me. And it was like those cartoons in, you know, like where Bugs Bunny sticks his hand into an electric socket and you see his whole skeleton and stuff, except what I saw was who I was and how I had come to be. And it was profoundly embarrassing. It was like the most embarrassing thing that had ever happened. I couldn't imagine anything more embarrassing and painful than to come into contact with how tiny I was in relationship to how life is, and how inadequate I was to actually live this life. But it was as if God cracked a smile at the same time. And so then when I was offered a choice, which wasn't a choice in words, so I could either like jump in to the light or turn away from it and go back. So when I was offered a choice, I said, oh, you know, what the hell, I'm dead. Jumped in. And then the next thing that happened was that I saw this beautiful stuff coming towards me, beautiful silver stuff coming towards me. And what is that? You know, and I just thought it was part of that experience. But then I realized that it was, I had kind of a change of perspective and realized that I was freezing cold, that I was lying on the road, and that it was sleet falling down on me from forever. And then I realized I'm alive. And then my first words were, oh, because the feeling behind it was, I'm going to have to follow through. And there's nothing in my life that has prepared me to do that. Nothing in my life has given me the tools. And so when I recovered, it didn't take long because miraculously I was unhurt. I was lying on the pavement. I was unhurt. And then I went back to college and went to see the counselor to find out, to say I had had this experience and now what should I do? And I couldn't have a way to talk about it. And so the counselor thought I was nuts and put me on horse doses of Valium. And so then I thought, I took it for a while and I was all like, and then I thought, oh, this is not helping. This big thing has happened and this is not helping. So I threw out the Valium and then I had the problem of withdrawal. And then I thought, you know what? I'm not going to talk about this. I'm just going to find out what it is and I'm going to practice with it for 20 years. And then at the end of 20 years, maybe I'll be able to talk about it. And so I asked around and there was no internet or anything. I had to ask real people and go to libraries for books. And I found out it was like Zen Buddhism and yoga. And I thought, no, so one of the people I talked to said, you have had a religious, spiritual experience. And I thought, no, oh no, no, not me, no. And then somebody, I kept getting into it and somebody said, you are going to have to learn how to sit in meditation. And I thought, I'm not going to do that. Anyway, I thought, I know, I'll just be friendly to everyone. I'll just be friendly to everyone. And then I don't have to do any of this stuff. And then the very next thing that happened was I went to the bathroom and there was this white stuff on the counter. I didn't have my glasses on. And then when I looked, it was toothpaste. And when I looked, it was my new toothpaste that my roommate had used, a completely new tube, and squeezed it from the middle and left it open on the counter and then thrown her towel on it. And so there was this like white, mushy towel with all of my new toothpaste and a completely ruined tube. And I just called her name with such hatred that I thought, I can't be friendly to everyone. I'm not a friendly person. And so that, I'm not going to talk about all the things that then happened, but basically what happened was I kept making all these, okay, I'm not going to do this, so I'll do that instead. So I kept trying to avoid it and bargain with it, and it wouldn't be bargained with. And so eventually I thought, okay, I'll just get ordained. Okay, I guess this is important. I guess I'll just do, okay, all right, you won, okay. So that was this, I wasn't very good. That was the spirit in which I have done this whole thing my whole life. Thank you for asking.
Wow, that was precious. Thank you so much. Got into the Zen life, kicking and dragging. Now you're fully into it. Thank you. We're so grateful. I'd like to open the floor for other Sangha members who may have something to either share with Victoria or to add or to ask her. Please feel free, raise your hand and you will be recognized and then you can unmute yourself. Yes, Maria.
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Yes. So Victoria, thank you so much for this really deep and rich and moving talk, which has moved me especially because I stopped another meeting that I was in, which was the G20 interfaith meeting that has been going on all week I think 2,000 participants, and basically it was about how we come together as a world community to address the corona crisis and also the climate crisis, and all of that combined. And your image of the fragility of the sunflower seed, and then your ice cream, the little sticks that kept it up, was such a wonderful image of our world situation, where we are all as fragile as these sunflower seeds, and yet there are these sticks, these communities that help and keep us together and keep us up. And here it was these villages, communities, the grassroots communities, all these people all over the world that are actually working together to keep us up, and we don't realize that. So while you were giving your talk about the Avatamsaka Sutra and interconnectedness, I just thought it was beautifully encapsulated in that image of the sunflower seeds and the sticks. That's a global image. So I just wanted to thank you for that. It was very beautiful and very apt at this moment. And we have to remember that when we lose hope, that there are always these sticks there that support us, and that's how we are able to support others in turn.
Thank you, Maria.
Helen.
So, thank you. Can you hear me, Victoria? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. I particularly like the very personal sharing when somebody speaks, because I get connected to that person. So my question is, so of course you got so mad at that person who neglected the toothpaste. And sometimes people think that when we have attained a certain level of clarity or realization or things like that, that we no longer get mad or angry. And one of the things I remembered about Ruben, so my vision of him was, oh God, he's a perfect human being, something like that. And one day while I was printing one of the journals, way back then when we had the journal in paper, somebody misspelled his name. It was R-U-B-I-N instead of R-U-B-E-N. And he gets the paper like this, and he said, how can somebody spell my name like this? I'm not Jewish. So how do you, I'm sure you still have moments like that. And how do you deal with your anger these days?
Oh no, I'm just perfect. I never have any moments. No, yeah, I think this is it's an incredibly important question, Helen. And I could get into a whole riff and rant on androcentrism in practice, but I won't. But let's just say that I think that now inclusion in practice is going to cure us of the kind of valorization that's been so front and center in practice. We actually have to begin to accept multiplicity, including all the emotions. So here is, this is a circle of emotions, okay? And you can look this up online if you want. And this is, I've been using this as a mandala on my altar during COVID-19. Maybe I should call it COVID-20, COVID-19, 20, and 21. So it includes like lonely, grieved, powerless, shocked, dismayed, confused, overcome, proud, optimistic, peaceful, scared, hysterical, panic, worried, mortified, rage, etc. Okay? And I think it is just so important to understand that these are normal. These experiences are normal. They're Dharma gates. Dharma gates are boundless. The Dharma gate of rage, for instance, you know, we think Shantideva is telling us not to experience anger or rage. But what he's telling us is not to allow anger or rage to boss us around, which is quite different. And so I think the contribution of the 21st century and of accepting multiplicity might be to understand when, for instance, when we see people marching. Okay, here's an example of also from my altar. This is Blanche marching, okay, for Burma. She's holding her bowls and she's marching. This is my Dharma sister. And so I think it's important to understand that peaceful protests, for instance, might be expressing anger, but they can stay peaceful because you don't have to be bossed around by anger, but you can heed the message of anger that's been developed for the past several million years by Mother Nature. The message of anger meaning, what unmet needs are there? What respect is not given that needs to be given? What boundaries are being transgressed? So if we meet anger with the light, from the place of light, anger becomes motivational energy that becomes transformational intention that actually is a karma changer rather than a karma continuer. So that's why I think that your practice is so important, because it points to Bodhisattva life as a transformative path in which we heed the messages of the emotions and we take them in an evenly attentive way, attentive and inclusive way. So doesn't matter what the emotion is, if it exists, it has a message.
Mm-hmm. Is there a way of getting that sheet online, or could you please send a PDF so we could share it with Sangha members, please?
Okay, wait a second. Let's see. It's called the Wheel of Emotions.
Oh, okay.
And
so
I'll share it right now if you want. Let's see if I can find images. Okay.
Wheel of Emotions.
Do you like bright colors or pastels? What do you like?
Bright is good. Bright is good.
Bright is good. Okay,
Yes.
I'm going to get bright
So
one.
you will send it to me on email.
Okay, so first I'm going to bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called Plutchik's Wheel of Emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh, host disabled participant screen
I know,
sharing.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, I won't do that then. I'll just
So maybe you can just put the link on chat.
I'll put the link on chat.
Send it to Ruben, and Ruben can
Okay,
either way.
so here we go. Send chat to MKZC host.
Everyone.
Oh, everyone. Let's see if I can get everyone.
Yes, you can, everyone. Just scroll up.
Oh, here we go. Everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, and let's edit, paste. Yep, there it is. Class tool, Plutchik's Wheels of Emotions. That's, there's so many different versions of this, but that's a nice brightly colored one.
Thank you
That's
so much.
in classrooms.
We will follow that up. Other questions or comments? We can extend a little bit since this is a precious occasion. Is that Pat's iPad raising a hand, or are you just putting your hand on your camera?
He's just putting his, I
Oh,
think
okay.
he's
I
trying.
think Jean has a question. I think.
Yes, Jean.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
She's from North Carolina.
Great.
Such a wonderful talk. Thank you so much. I loved how your spirit really came through. And it seems we can feel your joy. So I just wanted to confirm that while you came into Zen practice, perhaps kicking and screaming, that you are, how do you feel about it now? And looking back, having chosen the path, or the path chose you?
Yeah, well, now I feel, of course, like practice saved my life, and not just saved my life, but saved everyone's life in my life.
Mm.
So, for instance, when I started practicing, my family had me deprogrammed. So there was this thing called deprogramming, that they would call out a contract to have people come and kidnap you, and then they would put you in a small chair, and the deprogrammer would have a big chair, and it would be bright lights and stuff. Well, I found out that was happening, and that my mother had a contract out on me. And so I went voluntarily and got deprogrammed. You can see it worked. And then my family, being from the heritage we are, declared me dead and disowned me. And my mother didn't speak to me for 15 years. And fast forward 15 or 20 years, and everyone's getting old. And as they get old, their fragility begins to come up. And then it turns out that my practice allowed them to trust me in ways that they couldn't trust anyone else. So I left Tassajara in and started commuting back and forth to New York every 6 weeks to do caregiving. And so they never declared me or anything, but I was able to help them. And it had a transformative effect on my own life to do the right thing in that way. And that worked. And also, when I was in 2 serious accidents, the only thing that saved me was practice. So I remember after the second accident, in which I was tossed by an SUV and dragged the long way on my face. So everything was broken, and my face was kind of bashed in, and I had internal injuries. And so the first night I was there in ICU, like drugged to the gills. And, but somehow, because of Zazen, I was able to still speak. And so I asked the nurse to set up pillows so that I could have my arms supported and do Zazen. And the next thing I knew, the nurses were sitting Zazen with me.
Wow.
And then every night in ICU, every night I was in ICU, one night there were 2 nurses, the next night there were 6, and every night more nurses kept coming and sitting with me at 2 in the morning, 2:30 in the morning. Anyway, it was a transformative experience. And one of the nurses said, "I love coming in here. There's light in this room."
Wow, that is so moving. Which brings a follow-up question, if I may.
Yeah.
How do you see your Jewish heritage now from the point of view of your Zen practice, if I may ask?
Yeah, I see it as, I see this Zen practice as necessary, to realize my Jewish heritage without poisoning myself or the world.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, thank you. One last comment from anyone? Yes, Katie.
I'm intrigued. So the Zen practice helps you to realize your Jewish heritage without poisoning yourself in the world. Do you still practice your Jewish heritage?
Well, yeah, actually, in many, many different ways. For instance, in death rituals in my family, those have been Jewish rituals the whole time. And I went to Yom Kippur services, and I used it for avowal and renunciation of a difference that someone was criticizing me about at San Francisco Zen Center. So the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, between the New Year's and Yom Kippur, is a day of fasting and atonement in which you, as Jews practice avowal and repentance to either be written into the book of life or not written into the book of life for the coming year. This is an incredibly important practice. 10 days of studying one's life to see if there's anything that you've done that hurts people, and then to resolve it. It's like a step, it's like searching in fearless moral inventory, and seeking out all the people I have harmed, and wherever possible making amends for, Jews. And the Jewish practice of healing the world, tikkun, it's an essential Jewish value. The brachas are echoed in the gathas. And Judaism is also a spiritual foundation of Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
And Christianity, and also, Judaism and all the other religions are important to each other. They exist in the context of each other. So I'll always be culturally Jewish, and the practices of Judaism now mean something to me that they didn't yet mean when I was a teenager, because I was poisoned by my family's pain and disassociation and couldn't appreciate them. I could only see them as meaningless ritual at that time. And now I understand them as ways to heal the world. So,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you. This has been such a heartwarming and heart-filled session. So thank you, Victoria, for your sharing from the heart, as well as your very insightful summary of the Zen life, as I had noted earlier, and for conveying something so precious to us, namely the gift of your own self. We're so grateful. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks so much. Thank you. I feel honored to speak to this Sangha, and I look forward to seeing you live sometime.
Yes.
Please walk with safety and health.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Helen will now lead us with some chants, the closing chants, please.
The heart of the perfection of great wisdom sutra.
Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, practicing deep prajnaparamita, perceived the emptiness of all five constituents and overcame all suffering. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness no other than form, form is precisely emptiness, emptiness precisely form, sensation, thought, impulse, and consciousness are also like this. O Shariputra, all things are manifestations of emptiness, not born, not destroyed, not sane, not pure, no gain, no loss, thus in emptiness there is no form, no sensation, no thought, no impulse, nor consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no color, sound, smell, taste, touch, thing, no realm of sight, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, no ending to ignorance, no old age and death, no ceasing of old age and death, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending to suffering, no path, no wisdom, and no gain, thus Bodhisattvas live this prajna paramita, with no hindrance of mind, no hindrance, therefore no fear, far beyond all delusion, nirvana is already here, all past, present, and future Buddhas live this prajna paramita and attain supreme perfect enlightenment. Therefore know that prajna paramita is the great mantra, the great bright mantra, the supreme mantra, the unsurpassable mantra, by which all suffering is wiped away. This is the truth without deception. Therefore set forth this prajna paramita mantra, set forth this mantra and proclaim Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisattva Prajna Paramita Sutra.
The four vows of the Bodhisattva.
Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. The Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. The Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. The Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. The enlightened way is unsurpassable. I vow to embody it. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, Prajna Paramita.
Thank you so much again. May you all have a blessed weekend, and may we all continue to walk this path of awakening, which we have been given new angles in understanding and appreciation by Victoria, Shosan, Austin, Roshi. Thank you so much. We're so grateful.
Yeah, before we go, I'd like to welcome Pat, who is a student of Vicky Austin. Pat, can you show yourself and just introduce yourself briefly, please?
Oh, there you are.
That's why I didn't show myself before. When I lived in San Francisco, I was a regular student at the San Francisco Zen Center, and I was fortunate in that Vicky accepted me as a student, and she has been my teacher for the last 5 years, and I really appreciate her.
Okay, blushing.
Okay, well, thank you again, Vicky. And please remember, next weekend will be our weekend session. And if you'd like to register, please register before the end of the 21st, which is Wednesday. Have a good weekend. Thank you. Yeah, we say bye-bye.
No, bye.
Thank you. Say hello to everyone there at San Francisco.
Likewise, there in Dallas.
Yes.
Good
Thank you.
luck. Good luck.
Yes, come and visit again. Come and visit again.
Okay, thanks. In the meantime, stay safe.
You will.
Okay, I'll see you.
Bye.
Take care.